I'm going to read a hockey romance if it kills me. Hey pals, so I took a little break from TikTok recently, and when I came back, the Booktok girls were absolutely frothing at the mouth about hockey. Both like hockey books and also just actual professional hockey players. And one of their favorites is Alex Wennberg, which is super fun for me because he's on my team. Go Kraken. And the NHL accounts are fully pandering to it like you wouldn't believe. The Kraken even flew out Kiera Lewis, who is a Booktok girl who's very fun and super over the top and awesome, after she reacted to watching a Kraken game like on TV. They brought her to, I think it was a playoff game, and gave her a jersey that says Booktok on the back and stuff. Like, is that not the dream? We're going to talk about two things today, one of which is the book Mile High by Liz Tomforde, which is a hockey romance that seems to be pretty popular lately. But first I want to give a little context and share my controversial opinions about Booktok and hockey and fandoms and gatekeeping. So let's do that first. The Booktok girlies are excited about hockey. They read The Deal, they read Icebreaker, maybe they read Mile High, and then they saw a TikTok of Alex Wennberg in his cute little Kraken gear and they said, that's my book boyfriend IRL. And then they suddenly cared about hockey a little bit. And that is perfectly fine. I can already see awful internet people creeping into the comments section to be mad, first of all, that girls like something, which for some reason is always controversial, but also that girls like a sport because the men playing that sport remind them of the men in the books that they read, where men are fictionally playing a sport. And if you have a problem with that, go sit in the penalty box until you realize that it is pointless to try to police why someone likes something. And guess what? I originally followed the Kraken for aesthetic reasons too. I've never even been to Seattle. My friend and I just decided we liked their jerseys. They didn't even have a team roster yet. So for those of you who don't know, the Kraken are the newest NHL team. This past season was only their second season. So yeah, that's legit how I got interested in them, is they released the branding and the team name. And my friend and I were like, that is super cool. This jersey's awesome. The team name's awesome. You have an anchor where the top is the Space Needle for Seattle reasons. Like, of course, let's just jump on that. We can't even be bandwagon fans because we don't know if they're going to be good. And now we're 2 seasons later and I'm very much a fan. I've seen the Kraken play in person 3 times and it was extremely fun. I might even throw in a photo of when I got close enough to watch warm-ups and was quite literally crying. And the time before that, I won $100 on a pull tab right after the game. So like, what more could you want from being a sports fan? Probably nothing. Maybe a championship. Anyway. And I've gotten attached to the boys. Yes, Alex Wennberg is a cutie, especially for a blonde. Vince Dunn is visually underrated, in my opinion. Yanni Gourde is a little stinker on the ice. And Philipp Grubauer is a precious German strudel of a man. And he carried a lot of our playoff performance on his well-padded shoulders. So yeah, I am a fan. I'm a fan of the game, I'm a fan of the team. And if I see a Booktok girly wearing some Kraken merch, I don't give a cinnamon toast shit if she understands the offside rule, if she knows the penalty for icing. I don't care if Wennberg is the only professional hockey player she can name. I don't care if she's never watched a hockey game before. ESPN Plus is super annoying and no one has cable. Her enjoyment and fandom and whatever else she wants to do need have no effect on my own, nor on anyone else's. So if you're a Booktok girly with a newfound interest in hockey, first of all, welcome. Second of all, please remember, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Ever. Especially about this, but like, ugh. Okay, we can talk about books now. The big one everyone talks about is The Deal by Elle Kennedy. And I read part of that a couple years ago and just decided it wasn't really for me. Icebreaker, which is more recent, I looked at the description and maybe some reviews. It sounded a lot like The Deal, so I decided it probably also wasn't for me. But with this resurgence and love of Booktok plus hockey going on, I was like, damn it, I'm going to read a hockey romance if it kills me. So when I heard about Mile High, I thought this one sounded more promising, and I think that was mostly because it's not about college students, and maybe I'm just at the point in my life where I don't want to read about 20-year-olds falling in love as much as I do about like real adults with some higher emotional intelligence perhaps. Maybe that's just my inner old hag showing. Who can say? But yes, I did read and finish and enjoy Mile High by Liz Tomforde. Let's talk about it. To continue with my general trend in reading, I read this book on my Kindle, did not pay any attention to how long it is, and boy, howdy, it's long. This is a very long book, so have that context going into it. She's a sturdy tome. It's mile high. So here's what it's about. Our main girl, Stevie, is a flight attendant, specifically for Chicago's professional hockey team. And she got the job through her twin brother / roommate, who is on Chicago's professional basketball team. But she doesn't tell like her coworkers or the hockey guys about that, which I think is the right move. If you're gonna be a Nepo sister, you absolutely bury that information. Good job, Stevie. Stevie's not like other girls. She likes beer and cheeseburgers and stuff. She's definitely got some of the like, I'm just one of the guys sort of energy sometimes. Who is our main guy? His name is Evan Zanders, and he's the bad boy of the team. He's got a note in his phone with all these girls in different cities so he can look up who he should hook up with when he's traveling to their games and stuff. And he's just generally like kind of an a-hole, but he's also being pressured by his agent to maintain that persona because he thinks it's good for his position on the team. So like, you're the bad boy and that's why they love you. So that kind of explains some of why he is the way he is. Xander sits in the exit row of the plane when they're traveling, so Stevie, as the flight attendant, has to give him and like the rest of the exit row people the safety spiel. So like, in case of an emergency, you may be asked to assist. Whatever, I don't have it memorized. I'm a terrible flight attendant, probably because I don't work as one. But during that whole explanation, Xanders doesn't want to pay attention, like he's looking at his phone or something, and so Stevie kind of gets on his case, which he's not used to, Mr. Big hockey player, like bad boy of the team. So that kind of starts their slightly antagonistic, like tension-filled dynamic. I thought that was fun. I like that setup. I think it sets a good baseline and just sounds like a fun way to interact with a guy you think is hot, but you don't want him to know that you think he's hot. So our main characters are annoyed by each other, but they're also attracted to each other. And flight attendants are not supposed to fraternize with the team, so that throws a wrench into things, on top of like Xander's persona and reputation and Stevie's insecurity. And there are just a lot of factors at play. Obviously, there are a lot of things going on. It's a very long book. This book is pretty spicy, so if you're someone who likes to eat around the peppers in your romance book, it might be a little harder in this one than it is in some other ones. But yeah, there's that in there. If you're looking for it, you'll find it. Now listen, I'm gonna nitpick this book to death because I am who I am, but before I do that, I want to say it's not a bad book. It's not bad. If I wasn't enjoying it at all when I was reading it, I wouldn't have finished it, especially because it's so long. Like, if you think you might like it, you probably will. But I do have some questions and opportunities and considerations that I want to bring before the team. So, huddle up. We'll get this one out of the way early, but it might also make more sense as I keep talking. Why is this book about hockey, specifically? There's not very much hockey in this story, and there are parts of the story that might make more sense if it was a different professional sport. So I'm trying to think of why the author chose to make it hockey, and I can't think of a great reason. As I sort of alluded to, one of the bigger conflicts in the book has to do with Xander's agent pressuring him to maintain this bad boy persona for the paparazzi. Like, he's leaving games with different women, and the paparazzi are getting photos of him to be like, look at this player, bad boy of the Chicago team. Isn't he awesome? Wouldn't we love for his contract to be renewed in Chicago? First of all, just in a general sense, I had trouble suspending my disbelief that any professional sports team would be looking at their roster and going, I don't know, is he really getting us the paparazzi buzz that we're looking for? Like, does somebody in charge of a contract really care about a player's persona necessarily? Like, it's one thing if it's on the ice, so your bad boy persona in terms of like penalties or, you know, physicality on the ice. That's something. But if it's purely about like your social life and your personal sort of brand, does that really matter? For hockey, especially? I don't know. I don't think so. I can't think of ever seeing a paparazzi photo of a hockey player. Maybe I'm wrong, but I was kind of like, who cares? And there's very little evidence in the book that that whole bad boy paparazzi thing does make a difference necessarily, but then the struggle is, why would Xanders think that it did? Like, you're really gonna believe that? I don't know. Okay. This whole next section could be entirely null and void if I missed 1 or 2 words in descriptions in this book. So if that's the case and I did miss it, feel free to educate me in the comments. And also, I'm sorry for having wasted your time and my own. The thing that I want to discuss is vagueness in descriptions of key attributes for our main characters. And that sounds weird, but let me explain here. Stevie, our main character, might be plus sized. I think the implication is that she's plus sized, but I don't think it's ever explicitly stated. Stevie's size comes up a lot. It is something that she thinks about a lot. It's something that just sort of comes up in her insecurities and in the things that she thinks about herself and how she thinks other people see her. And the closest we get to like an actual, like where is she at with sort of her size is she says, well, I'm not a size 2. And it doesn't matter. First of all, your size is your size. But I think there's a difference between having plus size representation in a book and body dysmorphia representation in a book. And I couldn't figure out which one it was, because she could be not a size 2 and be a size 14, or she could be not a size 2 and be a size 6 and feel like she is far curvier or heavier or larger than other people around her, when maybe that's not extremely the case, or she might feel like people are looking at her in a different way when they're not. That difference changes the way I see her and changes the way I see her interactions with other people, so I kind of wish that it had been more explicitly stated. Again, like 1 or 2 words could make the difference here. It could say on page 98 that Stevie's plus size and I just skimmed right past that. If that's the case, I'm sorry and you don't have to listen to me, but I didn't pick it up anywhere, and that ambiguity just occupied a part of my mind throughout the reading of this book. One thing that's very clearly stated, Stevie's biracial. Her dad is black, her mom's a white woman. That's all great. More representation for biracial folks in romance and books overall. Love it. However, I did not realize that Xanders was supposed to be a black man until a long time into this very long book. It was left pretty vague, but it's, again, relevant to his character. I think Stevie describes him early on as having golden skin, which could really apply to pretty much any race, depending on other factors, so that didn't clue me in. But then later, Stevie talks about his black tattoos like barely contrasting with his dark skin, and I think that's what clued me in, like, oh my gosh, he's black. Because I really don't think the book ever explicitly says that. And the reason that it's relevant, and the reason I was like, ooh, this adds another layer, is because of hockey. Hockey is astoundingly and overwhelmingly white. Not just majority white. I tried to do some little tiny research for this. I couldn't find the exact current numbers for like right now, but based on past years, professional NHL players are 95% white. That leaves 5% for every other race. In 2018, I think it was, there were 6 Black American hockey players in the entire professional league. 6 of them. So white. So when I realized that Xanders was black, I was like, this adds a whole layer to his character, especially considering like that pressure to be the bad boy. So not only probably being the only black player on the team, maybe the only black player in the game when they're playing other teams, and then to also be like the bad boy, the player. What kind of pressure does that put on him? How does that make him feel about himself and how he's representing? So I was sort of waiting for that to become relevant, and it didn't. And that's fine, because I thought, okay, Maddie, not everything needs to be about race. And black characters in books don't need to be a vehicle for racism. That does not need to be their purpose. And also, this is fiction. This is not the today NHL. This is a fictional world with a fake Chicago hockey team, and maybe the professional hockey league in this universe is much more diverse than the one that we are currently living in. Like, wouldn't that be cool? So I had resigned myself to that. But then later in the book, Xander says something like, well, I don't look like every other guy out there on the ice. And I was like, but why is this the first and only time you're mentioning it? Especially because his whole thing is like being very in tune with his mental health and being very like up to date on his therapy and working through his stuff. Like, you would just think that that would be a consideration, and it almost was, but then it wasn't. And I believe this author is a white woman, so it's entirely possible that she just didn't feel comfortable telling that story. But then it comes back to, why did you pick hockey? I think that some of this stuff between the paparazzi and Xanders being in the far minority in the sport, but that not really being a factor of the story. I feel like some of those issues would have been solved if it was an NFL team instead, maybe, or I don't know, but hockey just seemed not super relevant to the story and in some ways almost a hindrance. So this wasn't a perfect book, but I did still enjoy it, like I said, and if you're looking for a pro sports romance, I bet this is one of the better ones. Like, it was still pretty good, just long. If you have any recommendations for other sort of similar books, or like if you think that there's a sports one that's way better than this that I should read, let me know. Give me a holler. I keep getting Kindle ads for Pucked, which I believe is another hockey thing. Probably a no from me, but never say never. So there's that. But thanks for tuning in. Feel free to like and subscribe and stuff. Leave me any recommendations you have. If you're still watching the Stanley Cup playoffs and stuff, have fun. We'll see when I get this edited and published. Go Kraken, and I'll catch you in the next one.